a lot of people keep themselves stuck because they're so set on it needs to be in alignment. And I think people are really confused about what alignment is. And I think they're really confused about what's flow and what's ease. And alignment isn't always comfort. If you are following your path of highest alignment, you will be uncomfortable quite a bit. Your path of highest alignment is designed to push you past the edges of your comfort. That's the whole point. It's meant to pull you into your highest potential. And so that's going to be pulling you into a place beyond where you're comfortable right here and now. All right, let's jump into some cues.
All right.
Some A's.
Some cues and some A's. Okay. I've noticed that when it comes to the energetics of money, it seems like we only allow the feminine to take the lead when we're spending it. When we talk about income or making money, it's all about structure, plans, competition, budgets, organization, creating more of it, etc. It makes me wonder how much of the feminine's relationship to money and that wounding exists because we can't see ourselves in receiving it. So my question is, what would flipping the script on this look like, and how do you think this could help us heal our money wounds?
I'm not exactly okay. So I think that the way that you see money can have both a masculine and feminine component on both sides. So I feel like the question kind of implies that money is just masculine, and money is masculine in many ways. Like it's a supportive energy, and with the, I forget what she said, but around like budgeting and things like that, yeah, that's a more masculine energy. But with everything we do, there is both a masculine and feminine component. And so what I would say is it's all about us realizing where we're only leaning into one of those components. And that's true also with the opposite. If we're just leaning into the feminine, it's with everything I'm showing up to in my life, can I also include that masculine structure? So I think of those both going together with everything. I mean, with spending, for example, if you think about like budgeting or investments or thinking about it logically or planning out your year, yeah, that's a masculine energy, but you can also add a lot of that feminine energy into it as well, which I think that's where the magic really happens always, because it shouldn't just be a logical thing. There's also the intuitive and creative piece around what feels aligned for me in terms of how I'm spending money as well. And even I think leaving room for intuitive spending too. I mean, this reminds me of a question somebody had asked about the time management training I did in the membership. And someone said, this is all very structured, but what about the feminine component? And for me, the feminine component is the easiest thing. Most of us are doing that naturally, which is why we feel so ungrounded, is because we don't have the masculine. So when you add in that structure, for me, that allows all of this freedom in my day, that allows so much more free time, that allows freedom in my head, and I can just show up to that structure and flow within it. Mm-hmm. And so I structure in that time management training, if you guys listen, I have in there things like you're blocking out time for rest and relaxation and fun and social life. So there's a structure to it, and then you show up to it, and then you get to play in it. You get to be intuitive with that. So I just think for us to be in balance with everything, we're bringing that masculine and the feminine into everything. The question for me, and it's kind of long, so I don't know, I might be misunderstanding, but I think it's just wherever you think that money's just masculine, think about how it's also feminine. That's probably going to unlock a lot with your relationship with money. I mean, for me, I think of money as a spirit guide. I mean, money's an energy, and money, it wants to flow, it wants to move, it is creative, it wants to expand. Money is masculine in that it provides structure and safety and like takes care of me, but it is also very feminine in that it nurtures me and it has that creative flow to it, and it's part of how I'm flowing with the world. People have all of these things with money, and I think people really need to take a step back and just notice, even like in our questions, what the assumptions are underneath it. Like, I think underneath a lot of questions, I'm not saying this one, but people ask me questions about money, and underneath it, it's just like this anger toward money. Like, they hate that money's there. And why? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. That's what we use as an energy exchange. So to me, it's that, are you just upset there's a form of energy exchange? Like, there's always going to be a form of energy exchange. So if it wasn't money, it's going to be something else. It's all of these other things we attach to it that makes us not like it anymore. So I think that if you can get in touch with the feminine part of money, she will guide you. And the feminine part of money is what guides me to aligned investments and aligned people and aligned opportunities and the right things that I want to spend on myself, and the way that I can allow that money to keep growing. It is a creative energy for me. And I think, anyone who really dives deep into their relationship with money and starts working with money in that deep way, like, talk to investors. I mean, that's a creative experience. There's a lot of logic and reason, smart, logically business decisions. But I mean, I have a lot of my clients are investors, are angel investors, and it's a creative process for them. There's a lot of, yesterday I was talking to a client, and we were talking actually all about his decision-making process in companies he wants to invest in, and talking about, like, it's largely, if not completely at this point, an intuitive creative process. It's a big vision. It's, he's talking about his sacral and like just feeling into the frequencies and what he wants to create in his life. It's much more of a feminine choice at this point. So I guess my point is that the feminine and masculine both exist within money, and in terms of our relationship with it, if you're not activating both of those pieces, then yeah, that's on you.
Yeah.
So activate both those pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I was thinking as you were talking too, it's like, of course money is creative because it's expression.
Yeah.
Like, however my life looks, not just like how it looks, optically, but how it actually is like, that's what I'm spending money on.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to spend money on festivals and like that's what my life looks like and that's the way that I express, then that's the way that I express. Certain other people might want to go on like a luxurious travel experience.
Yeah.
That's not much. I'm not going to say no to that, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to like, save all of my money and go to that as I would a festival. Everyone has different choices of what they do with their money, and even how they classify like their needs versus their wants. And so it does get to be, like you said, a creative process and moving things around and seeing how we can make it go farther.
Yeah. And I feel like, in the question, it was mostly talking about like giving and spending. Mm-hmm. But you can just as easily be focusing on money purely as a receiving mode. Like, that money is the main way that you receive. And if you start to focus on that more, then that's going to be more of your reality. And that was a big shift for me with my relationship with money and making money, was when I primarily just focused on how I was receiving it instead of how I was spending it. They're both going on all the time, but when I just started to focus on that energizes that in my life, and then I receive more of that in my life. So I would say you can also just focus on how you're receiving it and see it as a function of the feminine. Like, this is how I receive. And I think a lot of people who do focus more on that are the ones who you will see make money effortlessly, because that's what they're focused on.
So, I love that.
Yeah.
Cool. Why does it seem that Mercury retrograde affects us negatively? Is this a mass negative belief system that is running, therefore making it a part of people's reality? How can we combat it? I love how they say combat it, but also like it's running everything negatively. It's like it's like a fight. I just am picturing Mercury fighting us.
No, well, I'm curious what you think about this. I guess my perspective on it is that, like, correlation is not causation, kind of. And what happens is a lot of things with communication can get distorted, I'll say. And we focus on that and start to think, oh my gosh, it's going to keep happening. But the truth of the matter is, for me, I would say 99% of Mercury retrogrades I've been through in my life, nothing bad has happened. So I also think that a lot of people create more weird things happening, and because they're assuming it's going to happen, so they'll kind of manifest that. But yeah, for me, if something wonky happens in Mercury retrograde, I'm like, oh, okay, I get why that there was that glitch, and it's not a big deal. But if there's some kind of glitch and you freak out about it, oh my God, horrible things are happening. I just think it's kind of selection bias with what you're paying attention to, because you could say that any other time even when Mercury is not in retrograde. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it causes, well, you know, it can be, the energy makes it more available for things with communication to not be as clear.
Right.
And then we label it like bad, but it's not always bad. Actually, I think some of the glitches are meant to be.
It's good. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like, it's pointing to us ways in which we're not going slow enough, ways in which we're not being introspective enough. Because if you actually like study what it means astrologically, the planet isn't actually spinning backwards, right? It's that from our perspective on Earth, that's what it looks like. And we're living on Earth as Earthlings, you know, and so that's our experience. And yeah, it's like a lot of astrologers that I follow say, you know, words like reflect, reimagine, restructure, like do all of those types of things during Mercury retrograde. So it's like, I don't see it as a negative thing at all. I mean, yes, of course, things can happen, like you said, just like at any time. If anything, it's a nice excuse to be like, oh, that's why it was meant to be is Mercury retrograde. But I don't see it as, like running the show. I see it as a time where we are invited, I guess, to go within and be more introspective. And because of that, our outward communication with other people can be a little bit wonky. Our outward, you know, flights, which is, if you just sit and think about like all of the logistics that have to go right for all of the flights all around the world to go all the time, I mean, it's a logistical nightmare. So the fact that they go right more than half the time, you know, it's crazy to me anyway. But yeah, I don't see it as anything negative either. I think that if things are happening a lot and you notice that things are happening to you specifically a lot during Mercury retrograde, I would look at your chart, because probably you have some aspects there, and then just go slower. Like, that's the name of the game, really, is just go slower.
Well, it's like with anything outside of Mercury, whenever, I mean, we just had a conversation about this, like work-wise, things happen where things slip through the cracks, and you can see it as that sucks, like that went wrong, but really it was just showing you where there were holes in your processes. So that is helpful, big picture, and it's good to see that. So I think a lot of us, to your point, move too quickly, and it's good to double check things and back things up. But yeah, I guess I don't give it that much energy. Yeah. I mean, there's always a planet you can blame something on.
Exactly. There's
going on, right?
There's always something in retrograde.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's just different themes to focus on.
I like Mercury.
Mercury, yeah, you're very mercurial.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Because you're such a good communicator. And I mean,
thank you.
Also, the old chart Gemini.
I was gonna make a joke, but
say it.
I was gonna say, tell my ex-boyfriends.
I'll call them after this.
Wait, what else is Mercury connected to?
What do you mean?
Like
body? I don't know.
Anything.
Well, I mean, like Mercury rules. Well, fuck. I was gonna say Gemini, but then I thought that I was wrong. No,
is
Mercury.
Yeah,
Mercury rules Gemini.
Yeah.
And another one, right? Why am I blanking? I don't know.
I was just I mean, that makes
but
sense.
But also
I feel
just like it's the messenger planet.
Yeah.
You know, the little guy with the wings on his feet.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I relate to that. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I feel
you're the messenger.
Yeah. I feel like connected to Mercury on a deep soul level.
Yeah.
I feel like I could seem like a Gemini.
No, 100%.
It's my old Gemini moon.
Yeah, that's.
But
what
I
also
could be. I'm also a Scorpio moon.
Right.
I don't know. Find out.
Mars.
Great. Anyway.
My husband had an affair. The rebuilding process isn't going anywhere, and he has many excuses that he doesn't have time to do them. Okay. My question is for you and the guides. Do I stay with hopes he will soon be able to work on these things for the sake of our 2 daughters, or do I get divorced? I'm wondering if he's my soulmate to work through it or move on. Thank you in advance.
Well, I'm sorry that happened. It's devastating and very difficult to navigate, I think, especially because from our human lens, you know, we're aware of all of the ripple out effects, and I won't say I know, because I'm not a parent, but I can understand how, as a parent, you know, that love for your kids and want desire to protect for them and provide for them and just make it easiest on them can sometimes make things a lot more it can feel a lot more complicated to see clearly. But what I'll say is it doesn't really matter whether or not this person is your soulmate. We have many soulmates, in my opinion. And when it comes to romantic partners, you know, there's not just one person for everybody, and different people are here to teach us different things. And sometimes those contracts end in wonky ways. And for me, I just believed that everything happens for a reason. And it's one thing if someone cheats and that's highlighting a weak spot in the relationship that then you both have the opportunity to work on and communicate about. I think that actually a lot of couples can become like a lot stronger and healthier through experiences like that. I'm not saying go out and do that. I'm just saying that sometimes that shows like cracks in the foundation, that if you do have that deep love and soul resonance and that person actually feels remorseful, like you can really turn things around. But if this person is saying they're too busy to put in this work, to me, the answer is very clear. And I think sometimes we just need an outside perspective to see with clarity. One of the things that helps me the most to get clarity for myself is just writing down the factual events of things that have happened in my journal. And then I will read it back to myself, pretending like someone else sent that to me. And what would I just say? Because when I just write out the facts, it's a lot clearer versus all of, you know, my emotions. And, you know, especially with your husband, you have kids with this person, you have a deep emotional connection. You see all the good pieces of them, and it's not, people aren't just good or bad, right? Like really great people sometimes make mistakes, but I feel like the universe is showing you, and this isn't just because he cheated, it's if he cheated and he's not willing to put in the time or effort to work on things, what's going to change?
Yeah.
And the most important thing you can do for your kids is make sure that you are happy. And I wish more parents understood this. And I'm just saying from personal experience, like, I mean, your children know when you're not happy. And a lot of parents stay together even when they're not happy because they think that's going to make it better for their children. And it can oftentimes make it a lot worse. And there's a lot of like inner turmoil that can come with that for the child. And that's also modeling for the child what their relationship should look like. And that can lead to a lot of people-pleasing behaviors and getting into relationships where they're taken advantage of and where they're in emotionally abusive or toxic relationships, like attracting narcissists. When we peel it back, a lot of it can come from that. So I just think the best thing always is to think like, what is going to allow me to be the best parent possible and the best person possible, which is going to be, I need to feel happy and joyful and fulfilled. And it's okay if it's not with the person in front of you. Like, I don't know how long you've been married, but I think when marriages end, people will think of it as a failure. I mean, it's a success. However long you went, I mean, that's a successful relationship, and it ended the way it ended. And I know in 3D human terms, it really sucks when it ends that way. It's fucking hard. That's difficult to heal from. But when a contract is up, when there's something better and the universe is trying to pull you toward something better, painful things can happen like that because it's the wake-up call. When it's more subtle, people don't usually leave, especially in marriages, when it's this subtle nudge within you that is, this isn't quite right, or am I settling, or, you know, I wish this person was showing up for me more. That's not usually enough for people to leave in marriages, especially when there are kids involved, right? I mean, certainly not. So there's usually something more dramatic that will happen to say, hey, like, really, this isn't it. And I'm just a believer in life. Like, if I'm getting the signal, I'm not going to force, because I don't know what else I'm being protected from, big picture, right? I mean, to me, on a logical level, if he's not, I mean, if he's not even interested in trying to do healing work, then like, what's going to change? What's going to change? So I would think about it as, I mean, what would you tell one of your daughters?
Yeah.
I think about that, right? And if you want my opinion, like my opinion would be, again, like whatever's going to allow you to feel happy and like is the best thing for your kids. Always, always, always. My previous relationship, I've talked about this a little bit before, but like his parents were such a beautiful example for me. Like they had gotten divorced when he was young, and they're like, they did a lot of healing work, and they're so happy that I see how that divorce only affected him positively. And him and his sister, I think, would both say that. And it's just like such a beautiful family unit. And he would tell me, he was like, I'm like glad they did that, because I was only ever around happy parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of people assume, oh, if it's divorce, it's going to be bad for my kids. And that's not true at all. Like that can actually open the doorway for 2 sets of happy parents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot better of an impact. And I think, again, like the ripple out effects of what's the example I'm setting for my daughter. So I know it's a really difficult situation, and I think when you're in that situation, you do everything you can to try and fix it and see if you can, because you don't want to just walk away too early. But if you are expressing, what you need and what you want to do to move forward and how you can heal this, and that person literally won't, and nothing will change, then to me, it's very clear. It's different if that person is like, okay, yeah, I'll go to therapy and I'll work on this, and that was a mess up, and these are the things we're going to change. And like, that's a different story to me. But to me, like, it just feels like if there's no movement, there's no movement. And I think the universe is trying to get you to move and be braver. So that's what I would say.
That's great. Difference between staying stuck and not wanting to act from misalignment or not feeling inspired. I feel like I'm being picky on when I want to act.
Wait, say that again. Difference between being stuck
and not wanting to act from misalignment / not feeling inspired. I feel like I'm being picky on when I want to act.
Is this person grouping not wanting to act from misalignment with not being inspired?
I think so. It's because it says and then /. So difference between staying stuck and not wanting to act from misalignment / not feeling inspired. So like not wanting to act when you're not feeling inspired or when you're not aligned.
Well, aren't they kind of the same?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding the question.
No, I think they're the same.
Okay, I think I'm just going to answer what I think is trying to be asked. Well, I guess I'll just explore this, because I think that, I mean, it's the same. It can, the energy of stuck can come from a lot of different things. So if you're not feeling inspired, to me, not feeling inspired is different than being afraid to act from misalignment. And so I think, to me, those are 2 different aspects of stuckness. And I think that's more interesting to explore versus stuckness itself, because there's a lot of reasons we could be stuck. We could be stuck because we're meant to be stuck, quote unquote. Like when I think of stuck, for me, that word is, on a human level, I'm just like staying still for some reason. But stuckness isn't always bad. It can be, I am being asked to just hold tight for a second, recalibrate, other things are moving, go inward, whatever it is. And we, on a human level, might label that stuckness. I know I certainly have. I'm so stuck. And looking back, it was just supposed to be that way. It was an inner period of reflection for me, and other things were moving. So sometimes it's a helpful thing. Other times we're just in our own way. So I think that's what's interesting to explore. And I think especially in the spiritual space, a lot of people keep themselves stuck because they're so set on it needs to be in alignment. And I think people are really confused about what alignment is. And I think they're really confused about, what's flow and what's ease. And alignment isn't always comfort. In fact, if you are following your path of highest alignment, you will be uncomfortable quite a bit. If not always.
Almost every day.
Almost every day. Yeah. Your path of highest alignment is designed to push you past the edges of your comfort. That's the whole point. It's meant to pull you into your highest potential. And so that's going to be pulling you into a place beyond where you're comfortable right here and now. So your most aligned path will include being uncomfortable. They're not the same thing. And I think people get confused about that. I'll come back to that, but not feeling inspired, this is a sign that you need to get around new things. It's that simple. You need to get around new stimuli, new people, new places. You got to shake up the energy. Meet new people, try a new hobby, go to a new location, be a tourist in your own city. Learn about something that you don't usually learn about. Listen to a random podcast about a historical event, just like something really different. And most people don't do that. If you can, take a quick trip. I mean, nothing helps me more than going somewhere, just getting around new things, getting around a new environment, and anything you can do that's different. You really got to shake it up and try and go hard in the opposite direction from where you really go in, because you're feeling stuck or you're feeling not inspired because your body is trying to get you to move in the direction of the stimuli that's going to let you up, and it's different from your current reality. So it's not a sign to wait, it's a sign to go live, and you're going to bump into it. Like, it will get delivered to you, but you have to help co-create that by going and living. So that's what I would say. If you're not feeling inspired, well, nothing around you is inspiring you, because the thing that's going to inspire you is somewhere else. So go look somewhere else. So back to the fear of acting from misalignment. I guess the way I'm interpreting that is, I don't want to act just to act. I want to wait until I'm inspired. So I would go live, go get around new things, see what moves you. I think people don't realize how, I think about, what's inspired me in the last couple months that I never thought would? True crime.
Here we go. Says the Cancer.
I'm inspired. Like, you know what I mean? But like I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, what? Like, these are like,
it's stimulating.
It's like this deep, I feel like it's touching on this part of me from when I was like younger, not a kid, but especially when I was in high school, like my deep, intense obsession with psychology and all the weird shit I got into psychologically. Because it's psychology, it's like heartbreaking, but it's psychology. And I'm like, this is different and interesting. And I would never assume that, it's not where I would land, but I just went out there and
just
lived and found it. So I think that sometimes we can be so afraid of acting out of misalignment that we're not making any moves at all. And I think that not making any moves at all is the wrong move. And this is the problem with, I think, a lot of people, again, in the spiritual space. There's so much non-movement. There's so much waiting. And because, we do talk about, like, let it be delivered to you. There is a moment to stand still and let it be delivered and receive, and don't go chasing. But chasing and living are two different things. They're not the same. And we still got to go live and just experience life for the sake of enjoyment. That's the other important part of our purpose. So we can still make lots of moves just to experience life and living. And that's the point of what's just going to bring me joy in this moment. And that's the best thing that we can do. But I also think that sometimes making decisions making decisions that you're not sure are fully aligned or not can sometimes still be good decisions, because you'll quickly realize if it's in alignment or not. And I was writing about this the other day, about how I've made a lot of bad business investments. I made a lot of bad financial investments, I'll say. And it's been my bad financial investments that have allowed me to make good ones. And so one part of me could say, oh, I regret putting all that money into XYZ. But the other part of me is grateful that I did, because I learned that lesson and it helped me refine my process of what I want to invest in and where I want to put my money. So it's all kind of worth it. And I know this to be true in my life. Like, it's very rare that we can't undo a certain choice. So if you start to move in a certain direction, you're going to very clearly figure out if it's in alignment or not, and you can pivot from there. And life is meant to be, it's similar to being an entrepreneur. It's just a series of experiments. And a lot of people just never experiment. They just want to stand still and they want to know what to do and how it's going to work out. And they think that if they think about it hard enough, they'll know what's going to get them to where they want to go first time around. And that's not how life works. That would be really boring. And you wouldn't bump into all the important things that you need to collect on your journey to wherever you actually want to go. And like, isn't that the point, to be on this super beautiful, cool journey? It's not every hero's journey in some way. You end back where you started, but you collected all of this wisdom and all of this experience. So I would say make some moves, and then you refine from there. You go, oh, no, didn't like that. But what did I like from this? Okay, now I can go in this direction. It's like dating, right? You're refining your manifestation with every person you meet. You think this is exactly what I want. You go on a date with them. You go on 5 dates with them. You date them for 3 months and you realize, just kidding. I need to refine that. That doesn't mean that was a bad move, right? So maybe you in that moment are saying this is out of alignment. Doesn't mean it was a bad move. You only knew it was out of alignment once you got into it, and then you could figure out what's in alignment next because you went through what is now out of alignment.
It's like that meme that says rare esoteric knowledge that can only be found by fucking around and finding out.
Yeah.
It's like literally, you just have to do the thing.
That's it.
Just go fuck around and you'll find out.
Yeah.
You'll find out real quick.
100%.
How can you tell the difference between when you're self-sabotaging, like when it's not obvious, versus when something is right for you? Example, making a decision in business and it feels right, but it could be comfort or a subconscious pattern talking. I feel like this is kind of related.
Yeah, they're similar. I would say when you're self-sabotaging, you're not actually going to get any closer to your goal. So I guess on one level, I would just say, is it working? Right? Is it working is one, because a lot of people who are making decisions out of comfort, they'll end up in these loops. It's the same thing again and again. So your self-sabotage won't get you very far. You'll feel frustrated a lot. So if it's not working, there you go. The other piece I would say, like what initially comes to my mind, is when you self-sabotage, there's this like feeling of smallness. I want to say, I don't want to say contraction because it feels cozy, but it's small. It's like there's this underlying thing for me where I'm like, is this smaller than who I could be? And when you're making aligned decisions, or I forget how that person phrased it, but you're going to feel this expansion because you're going to be pushing past an edge. So if we're always living in our comfort zone, we're never going to feel that. So I would just ask yourself, do you ever feel uncomfortable, like in a good way? And I think we all know that moment of like, okay, this is good for me. It's going to help me, but I'm uncomfortable. In many ways, chasing your discomfort is very helpful, right? Because it's showing you where you can push past that edge and liberate yourself. I was having this conversation with someone yesterday about happiness, and we're talking about different aspects of happiness. And I said, well, I think one of the core pieces is freedom for me. And that's why finding my fears and facing them head on is vital for my happiness, because as long as I have those fears hanging out in the background, I'm not free. And if I know I'm not free, then how can I be happy? Truly, deeply, on a fundamental level. So with this, it feels the same to me. If you're self-sabotaging, things are either just going to stay the same or they're going to get worse. And you're going to feel this energy in your body that feels like an energy drain and feels kind of small, And I think for me, it feels very like black and gray. And why did I do that? Or here I am again. I mean, if you can recognize the situation, you're self-sabotaging. But when you're making aligned choices, you'll feel expanded. You'll feel a little uncomfortable, maybe a lot. And it feels gold and glittery and kind of nerve-wracking, but exciting. Like, here are possibilities. So you're stepping into that newness. So that's what I would feel into.
I feel like also, obviously this is kind of nuanced, but if you're having to ask the question, it's like maybe the asking the question is the self-sabotaging part. The decision made you feel that gold, glittery, whatever. But if you're asking yourself that, it's like maybe ask why you're asking yourself that too.
I think it's really helpful to always just question our knee-jerk reactions. And people will think it's a gut reaction, it's their intuition, and maybe it is. But if you question it and just double check, then you'll realize if it actually was that, or if that was just from conditioning or previous experience, or I don't want to be uncomfortable, or I'm getting defensive, or I'm getting triggered. So if you just keep looking at it and massaging it out, it'll be very clear to you if that is like a true body no, or if that was just a knee jerk no, because I don't want to go there. I'm afraid of what's going to come up. And if you journal about that or go deeper into it, it's, well, why is that a no? And I think when you ask that question of why it's a no, that will make it very obvious to you if it's self-sabotage or not.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Do you run into people who think you are partnering with the devil with the work you do? And how do you best handle these situations? I'm in a Christian leadership group and they are lovely women and I don't want to leave the group, but I know I make them uncomfortable with my spirituality because it's different than theirs.
I mean, do I? No, I don't, because I'm not around that. You know what I mean? So, but if I was around it, I'm sure people would. I mean, I think the last time that came up was when I got rejected from my first audiobook studio because they said that I was doing the devil's work. Did I tell you this?
No.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was so wild because they had my manuscript for at least a month prior to the recording. It was the morning of the recording. I was going in, so I was going in and my publisher was like, I'm so sorry, but they just sent us this email this morning. And
dude, what the fuck?
I guess I didn't realize, or she didn't realize, they like identified as a Christian audiobook recording. She had used them for everybody. Yeah. And they sent this long thing that I was doing the devil's work. And I just was thinking, they've literally had this information for a month. Yeah. It was so weird. It was last minute. And it was good that ended up happening because she was glad, because she said, I certainly don't want to work with people who are going to act like this or make that judgment. She's channel, she's spiritual. And also it was good because I had gotten in a huge fight with I was going through a breakup and I got into a huge fight and pulled an all-nighter, so I really shouldn't have been recording that audiobook that day anyway. So it worked out for me because I was nervous about it because I was so tired, and audiobook recordings are intense.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Whew. And your voice has to be pristine. But so anyway, that was the last time someone accused me of that. But I'm sure there are people who watch things on the internet who say things or think things. I don't come in contact with that because I'm not around people like that. And so I do think this is, you got to just take personal responsibility for groups you want to be in and you don't want to be in. And like, if I know that those people are going to make judgments like that and I'm choosing to be in a group like that, then I'm putting myself in the position where that could happen. So, I think if you want to try and have a conversation where you're kind of sharing your perspective and seeing how all of that can live together, then go for it. If they're not open to it, they're not open to it. But for me personally, I'm not really interested in convincing people of things. And I think that's my problem with like religion. There's so much judgment that comes with it. And isn't the point love and understanding and compassion? So for me, that's just a value thing. And I don't know that I'm really personally interested in trying to make judgmental people non-judgmental. Like, it's not really my job. And if that's how they want to live their lives, that's how they want to live their lives. And I'm just like values wise, that's a no for me. So I think it's just a matter of, if you don't want to be around that, then why are you in the group? If you do want to be in the group, then understand that could be part of it, because you can't change other people. And you can decide if you want to try and have a conversation that, hey, I would love if you could just hear me out around like what this is for me, and just, could you do that with an open mind? Like, I don't know how close these people are. But some people you just can't have that conversation with. Like, they just don't want to receive it. And sometimes it's not worth your energy. So then you just decide if you want to deal with it and not care or not be in it, I guess. So I don't know. It's up to you. But no, people don't say that to me. Like, I don't think I would want to be around people. I mean, I can't be around people who don't understand what I do. Yeah. I won't.
I think it's so interesting too. Cause I mean, I don't know about this person. It depends on like how close they are with people in the group or whatever. But for me personally, since I do have so many people that are religious, like in my family and like from where I am and stuff, Like you said, I only am still close with the ones who aren't judgmental.
Yeah.
But I'll have a lot of conversations with them where like I either intentionally use neutral language or I intentionally use their language to describe something that has happened to me spiritually. And it's so funny how like you can disarm people with that, just with the language. It's like we're having literally the same conversation. I'm talking about channeling, you're talking about, you know, whatever it is, praying, whatever. And like we can have a very like enlightening conversation about things, and it's just because I met you with the language that I'm using.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know, not.
Totally. And that like reminds me a long time ago, I was on this trip with different girls, and there was, you know, someone who thought this of me. And what I was doing was all freaky, and people were kind of like joking, oh, Christina, talk to the aliens or whatever. And she, like, it's all freaky. And then we had gone to a different experience. And it was like, I don't want to be specific, but like a connection time, I guess, like say in nature. Okay. And we all coming back and just sharing some of our experiences. And she said, you know, I was talking to God, and God told me this and God told me that. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, I mean, okay, so you're channeling.
Yeah.
Like I just call it source, and you call it, it's the same thing. So
I just got all these downloads.
Yeah. It's, and she's going on for like 5 minutes about everything that God said and things that Jesus said. And I'm just like, same.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's just how much you care about the people and how willing are you to adjust your language for them.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. And like you said, like how willing are they to still hear? Because I'm not going to waste my time. Personally, me. I'm not going to waste my time with someone who's not open. But if someone is open and I know that I can kind of take that step and adjust my language, then I will. But that was also a skill that I had to learn. Yeah. For a long time, I was like, I'm not dealing with this bullshit. Yeah. You know?
Totally. So.
And it just depends on the situation. Oh, I love this one. Tell me, what are your thoughts on tattoos?
Oh. Well, my thoughts on tattoos are tattoos will obviously change your vibration the same way any physical change will. Change your hair, you get plastic surgery, you know, get Botox. I mean, you're changing your frequency. So I don't know. I think with any physical change, it's all about how that was delivered to you. Yeah, I think it can throw off someone's frequency when it's a decision made from logic. I think when you're getting a tattoo in a way where it's like, I want to say meant to be, because it can come through in a lot of different ways, then it's probably the frequency change your body wants. I think from a more logical perspective, I guess, like with all my health issues, that's just always been a no for me because of like the metals. I know they have like cleaner options now, but I just try to not put anything extra in my body. Like my body's so sensitive, and I'm not like against tattoos at all. A lot of my friends have a lot of tattoos, and I'm just more of the person, I'm like, if you're into that and you love that, I'm like, you do you, I'm into it. You know, like for me, I've never had a pull, so those are just kind of, I don't really care if other people do it, but I do think that the metals is a thing. Yeah. And I also know a lot of people who are deep in the health and wellness space, and it's like, they know that and they're like, but I want this tattoo. Right. And so it's like, cool, then you do you. So yeah.
Do you find that people say anything like take binders afterwards or something, like anything to protect yourself?
People, I mean, it'd have to be a lot more intense than just binders. Like I do know people who are like in the biohacking space who do like full like protocols to help with it. But it's just like, you know, you do what you can, but it's like with anything else. I mean, it's like I dye my hair. Yeah. That's toxic. I mean, we all have our things that we do. I think some people are more sensitive than others. But I do think, you know, tattooing something on your body is an intense frequency change, and it's an intense message. And I think especially even like the words people are tattooing, like you want to be careful with that, like with what you're manifesting, with what you're stamping on your body. I do think you want to be careful with that. It's what you're vibrating out. And I think, you know, that can be used in a really beautiful, powerful way. I think also sometimes people just do it without thinking much.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I don't personally have a like strong emotion around it. I just know how it affects people's vibrations, I guess. And I think that people should be very intentional about the things they want to do with their bodies. And I'm all for you making any decision you want if it's intentional. Like, but I think a lot of people do things without thinking much about it and realizing kind of the repercussions.
Totally.
And I go back and forth personally with, I mean, we were kind of having this conversation earlier about Botox and stuff. Like, I'm definitely a purist, a naturalist. Like I lean toward like, let's not make any like changes to our bodies. Like, to me, if I like couldn't change it like way back in the day, like to me something like makeup or like putting your hair up or wearing a different outfit is very different than like
a permanent.
Or like getting filler or like, and I'm not like pro or against anything. I think people need to realize the health effects of things that we're injecting into our bodies and just take responsibility for that. But and sometimes you know all those health effects and you still do it, and like you do you. But I don't know, I really appreciate like the perfection of how people are, and I think unfortunately a lot of people just don't think that they're enough as they are. And when we make choices that are I'm trying to love myself more or make myself more beautiful, like because I don't like myself, I just worry about that. And I just think there's nothing more powerful for us than our truest, purest frequency, and that's how we were born. And I think an easier example for that is with food. Like, nothing's gonna make you more potent as a person than as whole foods as you can eat. And I say that, and there's still things I eat that aren't whole foods, but like I'm aware of that. Like, to be at my full potency, like I would be eating so squeaky clean. I mean, I do eat pretty clean, but you get what I'm saying. So because it's just coming back to natural nature, like we're delivered and created in that divine perfection. And I think a lot of what we're fighting against as we get older is all the stuff we've done to dull our vibration. And a lot of the changes we make as adults actually like can sometimes dull that frequency. And I always think it's interesting, like just on an attraction level, when I look at people's contracts, like let's say I have a woman and I look into her soul contracts and I look into her frequency, like her energetic signature, her auric field, and let's look at romantic relationships, the type of man or highest alignment man in life that she's going to live with, the man of her one way. And then let's say she's, dyeing her hair and she's getting her filler and her Botox and she's whatever, getting her lashes and that changes the signature, and that's a different set of timelines for like a different men. And so it does, and I'm not saying one's better than or worse than, but it does change who we're attracting in. And I think that's something interesting to think about. So for me, when someone is like, I just keep getting this really strong intuitive hit that I need to do this, that's very different than like, I don't like my nose. Right? And the other thing is, another example is accidents, right? Sometimes people will get in accidents and then something will change about their body in whatever way, whether it's a scar or face shape changes or whatever. And it's like, it was an accident, but it wasn't an accident. Like your frequency needed to change. So I think there are just like nuances to it. I mean, yeah, it's not for me like a bad or good thing. It's just, it does change your frequency. And I think that's important to realize. Yeah. So I think, for me, I'm like, okay, the more work I would get done, it would be different timelines, different contracts. So I would attract a different, like whoever's highest alignment going to be my husband now would be very different. So that's something also interesting to think about.
Yeah. But yeah, it's fascinating. I'm thinking about like when I had lashes versus right when I got them off. It was so different. I'm sure you remember.
What did you notice?
Well, I was just like, holy shit, it's me.
Yeah.
Like, because I had them for like almost a year. Yeah. I can't remember. It was like a year. And so obviously you get used to it. Yeah. Like you get super used to it, and I loved them, and like you said, in that situation, I can see them as like both equal or both neutral at least. But when I didn't have them anymore, I was like, oh my God, it's my face. And Sarah said that to me, actually. She was like, you can see your beautiful face again.
Yeah.
And it's like, you wouldn't think that, because you would think that you're just accentuating something. But it is interesting how one small thing can change like literally your entire, I mean, especially on your face.
Yeah.
Right? Your face is your, yeah. And I think also what I will say about the tattoos, because I mean, obviously I have a lot of tattoos, but for me, the big thing, I mean, of course, mine are all intentional. They all represent like a very specific moment that either I had a download or an experience or something like that. But something that I realized later was the person that is going to be putting this on my body, I am going to be very, very, very specific and careful with. And I want it to be in like a ceremony, right? Like I'm super lucky now that, you know, I met someone who does ceremonial spiritual tattoos, who like, and is one of my close friends, you know, but even before that, my artist in Oklahoma was like the most high vibe, most amazing guy. He's obsessed with Star Wars. We always had like the best high vibe conversations, and so I was just kind of lucky that I fell into that. But now I'm just like, I could never go to a random walk-in clinic and like the energy of the and you know what I mean? It's like,
I mean, you have that person's imprinting your body. You have a permanent contract with that person. Yeah.
And so not only like do I want to know the person, but even like the state that they're in that day, that time, like I want to be very intentional about that as well. And there's been times even with my friend where it's like he was supposed to give me a tattoo and he's like, hey, I've had an off day. I'm like, cool, we're not doing this today. You know, I don't want that to be the energetic signature that's imprinted on me.
I mean, and I think that's the thing though. It's like how many people throughout their lives are kind of fighting against, and think about the energy of like, this person almost like branded me and I'm trying to undo that. Yeah. And then we go and we willingly like get branded, so to speak. Yeah. Like, I mean, yeah, there are repercussions of that. I think people should realize that. And that's my thing. It's like, that's why I'm like, less is more. Like, it's not bad or good, but it's more about you just, you have to, if you're going to do it, take responsibility for the repercussions. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Like, totally. There's lots of toxic things I do, but I'm aware. Totally. So something happens on me.
Yeah.
You know?
Toxic bucket. How full is that thing?
Yeah,
let me check that real fast. Speaking of which.
But you know what I'll just say about that? I do think there's this really powerful, I think there's a movement happening right now. I feel like everybody's trying to go back to like naturalism. I feel like a lot of people are like stopping dyeing their hair. People are like going back to like less makeup, and a lot of people are getting like
things dissolved,
stopping Botox, I mean getting implants out. And I think part of that is obviously different people are having health effects. I mean, we do all these things, we don't know what the health effects are, but I also think a lot of people are just feeling intuitively called to that. And when you share that with your lashes, I was thinking, I have a friend who had very distinct hair and like her lashes for years and years, and everybody just knew her because of those things. And she kept getting the intuitive message to take the lashes off and dye her hair back to her normal color. And when she did, it was like totally different person. And I watched as when that happened, like relationship changed, her career path changed, like everything resonated differently. And I felt like, wow, that was just, you know, her higher self trying to get her back in alignment, because her resonance is going to change. And so I do feel like, I don't know if you've noticed that too. I feel like it's like a big thing right now. So I think that's going to change a lot for people. Like, I think you can see more clearly. It's just the more natural you are, you know?
Yeah. Like you said, it's just true to your frequency. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about coffee. We're all obsessed with it, and it's so delicious, but what is it doing to us on a spiritual / energetic / frequency level? Why are people trying to cut it out of their life? What are the negatives that maybe most of us aren't aware of? Thank you, love you.
Thank you, love you too. But
have a whole episode about this.
This coffee episode. Okay, I talked about this in the membership, so I'm gonna just kind of say some of it again. But the coffee saga. Okay, look, I love coffee. I love the taste. I love the smell, but it is a drug. It is. Like, I mean,
She's staring into my soul. If you guys didn't know.
it is, and I'm like, I'm saying all this, like, I'm also part of the problem, but like, and there's been my personal experiments with this and what I've gotten intuitively. And, for years, I did not want to listen to my intuition, my guides, like, stop the coffee. I was like, no, I'm fine. And I really let myself believe what other people around me were telling me because I wanted to believe it, of all these things that are gonna, I'm not gonna absorb as much of the caffeine and you're just detoxing it out and blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, people are gonna come at me. Like, if you're gonna drink coffee, minimum drink like mold-free, like clean coffee. And so if I'm gonna have coffee, I'll have the Paleo Valley or I'll have a King coffee. There's other brands too. Those are just the ones I use. But there's a lot, I feel like, of now like super clean coffee. So you want to make sure of that, so you're not getting all the mold and pesticides and crap. That's that. But I do think that the caffeine affects people in bigger ways than they realize. And spiritually, what I'll say is, caffeine can either make your intuition a lot worse or a lot clearer. And I feel like acutely it can make it a lot clearer. I think long term it can make it a lot worse. Acutely, the caffeine will kind of take you out of your body a bit. And when you're just taken out of your body a bit, you're a little more floaty. It's kind of like, some of your best downloads will come through when you're like delirious. Mm-hmm. You're about to fall asleep, you're trying to stay awake, and you don't know what you're saying, and important stuff comes out. Theta. But so it can have that kind of effect where it pops you out a little bit. It speeds everything up a little bit, so you're really in your upper chakras, and that can bring through a lot of cool stuff. But long term, it takes you out of your body so consistently that you're not grounded. And when you're not grounded, you can't get clear intuition. And a lot of getting clear, consistent intuition, it's about how grounded you are. It's about how like earthy you are. And what a lot of people don't realize is the more you get in your lower chakras, the more intuitive you will be. A lot of people focus just on these, and it's really ungrounded. It can be very inaccurate. It can be, hit or miss, or it can just kind of turn off and get fuzzy and turn brain foggy. The more you get into your lower chakras, it's a consistent, deep, stable form of intuition. And so it can really make us ungrounded over time. And like, I see this, disconnecting people's grounding cords, our connection with the earth. So that's just one aspect of how it affects our intuition. I feel like another piece with coffee is, it's like anything that's a stimulant. To me, it's like that's a drug we need to be careful with. The same thing with cacao. I mean, cacao is a great food, but I think it should be treated as like a sacred cacao. Yeah. So I think with any of these things, it's like using it intentionally is very different than every day. The thing with coffee is, and I said this in the call, and it was such a dumb moment when I thought about it this way. I was like, why would I not be suspect of anything they're handing out like water?
Yeah. Like
anywhere you go, they're handing out coffee. And to me, it's like they just want to drug us all up. They want us all to be out of our bodies. They want us all to have brain fog. They want us all filled with toxins and pesticides and crap. Like, coffee is a great vehicle for it. People are just drugged up. People are living off of coffee. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to get into like all the long-term health effects of that. I mean, we could talk about just, your HPA axis alone, but there are all of those long-term repercussions of having that stimulant in your system for a very long period of time. On a frequency level, the other thing for me is your energy body is going to be at its clearest, its most potent, its best, which is important because that's how you magnetize, that's how you attract. That impacts your physical health, your wellness, your mental clarity, when it is balanced in color frequency. And this is connected to what we eat. So when we're eating a lot of browns and whites, our energy body looks like mud. It looks toxic. It's literally that 1-to-1. So eating the rainbow is important in my opinion. And I always think about this with my balance of foods. And so, when you're just eating, like for me, there was a period of time I'm just eating meat, drinking coffee, eating greens. I have no color balance, right? It's like, it's blend green and brown. That was it.
That's me.
And vibrationally, I mean, that's not that much better than just eating white bread.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think about it more on balance, right? Like if I'm gonna have a brown drink, it actually doesn't matter what brown drink. I'm like, I gotta get my blueberries, some strawberries,
Yeah.
what orange, like what can I get in to balance it out? And I also noticed this when I was just eating it without coffee. I was eating so many green foods, like just green, and that's throwing me off too. So I would think about just like that balance color wise, and if you're eating like a lot of meat and coffee, you're just brown. Frequency wise.
Me.
Yeah. So you're just not at your clearest.
Yeah.
So but I do think that a lot of people have extreme brain fog and they don't realize it because they've just been on coffee for so long. And it took me like 3 weeks of not being on it to realize how much it was making me tired and how bad it was making my brain. And now I'm like very aware of how much it fucks up my brain, and I still drink it sometimes anyway. I mean, I love the taste, but decaf has been doing better. But I also think, and I don't know what it is in the coffee. I don't know if it's like the tannins or like, I don't know what it is. I don't know that it really matters because it's more vibrational. Like there is just something in coffee specifically, even outside of the caffeine, because there's different components. There's like the caffeine component, which I think causes a lot of issues. But there's also just like coffee itself. I think there are things in coffee itself that, I mean, it's physically dehydrating and it's energetically dehydrating. And when we're energetically dehydrated, that does impact our brain and our channel. It like shrivels everything up. And so there's whatever that, I don't know what the physiological element is. I'm just telling you how it looks in people's bodies. Like, and I think this also has to do with how much water you're drinking, how much of what you're eating, how quickly you metabolize, obviously caffeine, but often people who don't metabolize caffeine very well are super sensitive. Like, so we're talking about the super psychic people. So usually the more intuitive you are, the more this is going to affect you. And the more you open up your psychic senses, you're going to notice all kinds of things affect you in crazy ways that you didn't realize before. I mean, for me, for the longest time, eating a square of cacao every day, no big deal. And then the more I opened everything up, it was like that square of cacao was like drinking 3 cups of coffee to me. I'm like, holy shit, you do become more sensitive. The same way, like with eating food, right? When I cut out gluten for a couple months, and then when I had and eat it again, I'm like a wreck because now my body has become more sensitive and I'm seeing what had been going on for a long period of time. So I also don't think it's good to be dependent on anything.
Yeah, definitely
like
not.
It's that simple. So it's different if you have coffee here and there. The same way, I mean, we all have stuff here and there. Like, is alcohol good for you? No. Do I have it here and there? Yeah. Like, know what you're getting yourself into. But I think that, you know, we've just normalized having this drug every day. And like, again, I'm part of the problem, and like I wish I could. Every part of me doesn't want to be saying this. Like every part of me has been searching for the last 3 years for a reason why coffee is helpful. And the one reason why it's helpful is what I said before about how it can in some ways turn on the channel a bit. But over time, I mean, I'm just like, I don't feel like it's helpful.
Yeah.
You know? And again, it's like the body change thing. I say that, but they're also like the same way I get my hair dyed. Like, I know that's not healthy, but like I don't care. And I don't use only non-toxic makeup. I use a lot of non-toxic makeup, but there are products I use that are toxic. I recognize that. And there are going to be super spiritual people who live squeaky clean and still have their coffee every day and don't care. And it doesn't affect them. And it's all about the bucket. Like you were saying, it's all about that balance. So yeah, if I'm just looking at it on its own, I'm like, yeah, it's a stimulant and it's masking things. And if you're getting dependent on it, that's showing you something. And it feels fishy to me. But especially because it's so addictive. And anything that's that addictive.
Yeah.
I mean, we're suspect of sugar because it's that addictive. Why are we not suspect of this?
Yeah.
So that's kind of those are my thoughts on it. That being said, I love coffee. I wish I could drink it every day.
Well, no, though, because then you would.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At least you're not like me.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a weird fucking case.
I mean, I crave it.
I know.
But I also think I crave it because my adrenals have been low. So, and if you're ever craving a food, like go just look up what you're missing in your diet, or like Google will tell you. I mean, not Google, but you know what I'm saying. So like when you have low adrenals, your body's looking for that rush, so it'll crave coffee and chocolate and things like that. And
that's probably for me.
Yeah, or like with cacao, like you're craving cacao, you see more magnesium. There's all kinds of other things that you can get through other foods, but yeah, it's a toughie. Yeah. So I've been trying to keep it to decaf.
Yeah.
But it's crazy how different I feel.
Yeah. I think that's the thing too, is like if people have never taken a break or a detox, like try it, and that's when you'll really see the effect it's having on you. That's why I'm a weird case, because like I did one and I didn't really feel different, so I was like, oh, it's fine then.
Yeah. Well, how does it talk about the ADHD and coffee thing?
Oh yeah, so well, I was gonna ask you about that with like how you think it relates psychically with ADHD being psychically sensitive, because this is actually the way that I found out that I had ADHD. I didn't like put the dots together for a few more years, but I was in a class, like a Saturday class when I was in high school that was like 8 hours. It was the first college class that I had ever taken. It was a concurrent class, and me and my friend went to somewhere in between like a break to go get energy drinks so that we could stay awake. So we both got a Red Bull and a 5-hour energy. I'd never had them before. I literally drank the Red Bull and I fell asleep. Like I'd never fallen asleep in class in my life. Like I can't fall asleep even to a TV, but I fell asleep. And so someone told me that was because I had red hair. I was like, sure, whatever. Because there's like so many weird fucking things with having red hair. Like, and it, like needing more anesthesia and like medicine having the opposite effect.
Is that true?
I don't know. I don't even know what's true. Like when I was a kid though, you know how Sudafed makes you like more awake and Benadryl makes you fall asleep?
Well, I could. Okay, yeah.
It literally did the opposite for me.
I mean, I could see that with the redhead.
Yeah.
I could see that because like it's like you burn things up more.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to okay.
Well, that's like a whole different thing. But so anyway, that's when I was like, oh. And so I've had this whole journey with coffee. Like I did start drinking coffee when I was in high school. And I never really noticed it. Like it never made me jittery. It also never really made me feel more awake. I just liked the taste. But it was never like, actually I think I did drink it every day in college. But like, again, maybe every other day and maybe 1 cup. It was never like anything crazy. Now I drink a whole French press every day. But also when I've told you this before, when I was living in Spain, I couldn't drink coffee. It was like, it made me really sick because I was living in mold, and it was probably moldy coffee that I was drinking. Now, of course, I drink, it's been quadruple tested for pesticides and all these things. So the ADHD thing is that it's like it's not a joke, it's a real thing, but people say like, oh, if you have ADHD, then which brand do you have? Do you have the brand where like coffee makes you feel like a psychopath, or coffee does nothing for you? And I have the one where coffee does nothing for me. Yeah. So
does it do nothing, or does it make you sleepy?
Well, sometimes it makes me sleepy. Sometimes it does nothing. So usually it only makes me feel sleepy if it's like 4 p.m. And or if it has sugar with it, because I usually drink my coffee black. So if it's just black coffee, it doesn't usually make me sleepy. But if it's later in the afternoon, then it will. But I've had that before too, where it does make me sleepy, like the Red Bull or the 5-hour energy. But usually coffee specifically doesn't do that. Yeah. It's just other stimulants. But when I took a 4-week break from coffee, and I mean, I did feel like kind of drowsy, but not anything crazy. And then when I reintroduced coffee, I also didn't feel anything different. And like, for example, the other day that I was at the funeral, like I didn't drink coffee and I just forgot. Yeah. And I don't get caffeine headaches or anything, even though I drink so much coffee every day. Yeah. So
I feel like, I mean, there's a couple of things here. Like, I feel like how we interact with, I mean, any substance has to do with qualities in our field. And one aspect of it is kind of how like buzzy we are. So there's like the ADHD component, but there's different types of ADHD, right? To your point. And if I look at somebody's like field, I do think can be a component of like when you're so buzzy already, there's 2 things that could do, or there's more than 2, but for the purposes of this, like one is I'm so kind of buzzy, right? And that I'm just burning through a lot really quickly. So when that comes in my system, I just metabolize it really quickly. So it's not gonna have an effect on me. 2 is I'm I'm buzzy so much that like my body's working really hard and it's going to actually make me sleepy because my body has nothing else to give and it's trying to get me to pump out more cortisol. Like what happens to me with my adrenals, how it makes me fall asleep. So I think that's one component, right? Like if you're, and I do think you burn through a lot of stuff really quickly. Like you fucking transmute that shit. So it would make sense to me. I think the other component is, and this is certainly the case for me, like some people are more naturally just like energetically porous than others. And some people are like transmute things more quickly. Some people just have stronger like boundaries. And this is something that I have known about myself, not just energetically, but it's physically. Like I'm just very porous. Like when someone dyes my hair, they'll put the color on that they think it's supposed to be, and it turns out literally 12 shades darker. Wow. Like I remember the first time I had someone dye my hair, like I was like, I want like a dirty blonde light brown, and it came out black. Yeah. And she was like, holy shit, I've never seen, your hair is so porous. Or with my teeth, it's like this quality that shows up everywhere. And so energetically I'm like absorbing everything in that way. And other people are not so porous, so to speak, you know? And so I also think that can change how we interact with substances like this. Like, and you know, you can be intuitive either way, right? Like just like you can have a really kind of solid, I think of it like a shell, like strong shell, and like intuit really strongly, and you're not absorbing it naturally. So I think there's just different ways that energies can interact with our system. But the other thing I was going to say that's interesting about that coffee piece is, I mean, caffeine alone impacts me so differently than coffee. Right. So differently. Right. And I mean, I lived off 5-hour energies in high school, and then I lived off caffeine pills in college. But every time I'd have coffee, it just destroyed me. And I thought of it at the time, I thought it was an acidity thing. Like just like, and which I do think is a thing for people. And I do think that has to do with the energy balance in our body of like acid versus alkaline. So I think depending on where you're at, again, that's why some people might not experience like kind of the negative effects of it. And I think there's some people who like kind of a turn up a stimulant all the time that could work for them if they process really quickly and whatever. It's so individual. But I do think that's the other thing that makes me like about coffee, because caffeine alone and like high doses of caffeine affect me very differently than coffee itself. Yeah. So that's what's weird. Yeah. And the sleepy thing that happens to me whether it's decaf or caffeine.
Do you want to know the craziest thing I've ever heard? What? That I heard twice in 1 week? People drinking coffee to go to sleep.
Oh, yeah. I've done that before.
Well, no, okay. I've done that before too. But I'm talking about like people that don't have ADHD that like just do that every night to go to sleep.
It's not like a European thing.
Yes. Well, okay. I drink coffee at 10 p.m. too when I lived in New York. But I'm saying like this. So whatever. He was telling me that his mom gave him coffee from the time he was a kid. And so he was like, now I cannot sleep without having espresso. And he was like, and I've tried decaf.
Is he okay?
No, that's what I said. I was like, are you alive? And I thought it was the craziest thing. I thought it was the craziest thing I had ever heard. I was with my best friend, and then we were with our other friends the next night, and my friend starts drinking coffee. He starts drinking cold brew.
I'm curious what his labs are like.
I know.
Cold brew?
Yes. And he was like, oh, no, yeah, it's fine. It's a Mexican thing. And I was like, what?
I mean, look, people are built differently. I don't know. Yeah. But I am curious. I'm like genuinely curious, like if it impacts them or not, right? Yeah. Like if it's showing up internally.
Or like how is their sleep quality?
Yeah, sleep quality. And I think there's a lot of effects. I think about this with like my aunts and uncles and their coffee habits. And they think, oh, I'm good with coffee. And I'm like, they have all these things going on with their health, like heart issues and like blood clots. And I'm like, and you don't think your daily coffee habit is contributing to this? Or like, my dad can't figure out why his blood pressure is high. And I'm like, might be the coffee. He's like, I'm doing everything. I'm like, except you're drinking your Folgers moldy ass coffee.
That's literally my dad.
What the hell? You know, like, it's a big mystery why your blood pressure is high. Like, oh my god. So I think there's these other things that are going on that people don't realize, and you get used to it for sure. But you know what I just want to say? I feel like this is controversial, but I have to say it somewhere. Look, I know the King Coffee community is a big community, and I love King Coffee. Okay. I don't want you to misunderstand. I love King coffee. And if I'm going to have coffee, again, I either have Paleo Valley or King. I think they're great. And I love the ease of King. And I use King for my enemas. And like, so I think it's great. But I was led astray by people in this community who were apparently King coffee experts. And I was like, what's the deal? And told me that I was detoxing and it was normal, when really I was just like neutralizing myself to the jitters I got. And then when I was getting kind of worse, told me, oh, you just need more King coffee. And so I, for like years, was drinking at least 2 to 3 cups a day. And other people, they were like, oh yeah, I take like 4 or 5 a day. It's a supplement. You don't metabolize the caffeine. And that completely burnt out my adrenals.
Yeah.
It completely destroyed me. And I just thought if I just drink more, it'll feel better. And at first when I had more, I was like, yeah, supplement's working. And I love that. I was like, yeah, I could just drink coffee all the time. It dehydrated my body. It screwed up my adrenals. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, I drink coffee and I just have 1 cup. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, I know plenty of people are responsible. I'm just telling you, in case somebody tries
to tell you.
And I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying, I mean, maybe their body might be different. But for me, I was given the guidance and I was told it's just like a supplement because the mushrooms balance it out. You don't that was not true for me. And I should have listened to what I thought instead of saying, okay, I guess I'm just detoxing. I'm clearing things out. And then the shakes went away because I just got used to it. So that's what I would just like to say.
Listen to your own body.
Listen to your body, and you can do all things in moderation or you can cut it totally out. Do you. But I think the theme is just be informed with your decisions. And I had a little coffee today.
Wait, when?
Maybe right before this.
You did?
I told you I was having the mushroom coffee.
Oh yeah.
But that actually does have less than a regular cup of coffee.
I just got confused because I always thought that one was just mushrooms. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm tracking.
But I do think the mushrooms help for sure.
For sure.
And I think what you had said to me about the nootropics definitely helps for sure. So I do think those things balance it out, and there are those hacks for sure. And my friend used to have a CBD coffee. I definitely felt different on that. But there's just still something in coffee itself that is fishy to me because I feel pretty fine when I have caffeine from other things. Yeah. So coffee.
Fascinating.
This is sus. Coffee is sus.
We are sussed out. Coffee.
Yeah.
At coffee. Write us back.
At coffee. Write us back. All right. Well, are those all of our questions? Amazing. Thanks everybody for sending in questions. And we have a little question box, right? Where you can send in more. So we'll put the link in the show notes / description. So thanks for all your questions, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.